these things. There is no one else like you. Oba, Oba, Kábíyèsí. Only you can do these things. There is no one else like you. Hey.
Oba, Oba, Kábíyèsí. Only you can do these things. There is no one else like you.
Oba,
Kábíyèsí. Only you can do these things. There is no one else like you.
mo ní ọba àwọn ọba ọba aládé ewúrà. Only you can do these things. There is no one else like you. Kábíyèsí o, Kábíyèsí o, ọba mímọ́ mímọ́ tó ń gbé níbi gíga. Only you can do these things. There is no one else like ọba o.
Oba,
Hey.
Kábíyèsí.
Only you can do these things.
There is no one else like you.
Ọba àwọn ọba o.
Oba, Kábíyèsí. Only you can do these things. There is no one else like you.
Ọba àwọn ọba, Kábíyèsí. Only you dey do these things. There is no one else like you. Ọba àwọn ọba o, Kábíyèsí. Only you dey do these things. There is no one else like ọba o.
Oba,
We worship you. We exalt you, Baba o.
only you can do this.
There is none like you. There is none like you. There is none like you. Hey, hey, hey.
Kábíyèsí.
Only you can do these things. There is no ọba aládé ewúrà o. Ẹ ṣé Baba o.
Kábíyèsí.
Hey.
You can do these things. There is no one else.
Ọba aládé ewúrà o.
Oba,
That is who you are. That is who you
you
are.
can do these things. There is no one else like you. Great are you, Lord.
That is who you are, Jesus.
Greatly to be praised.
We worship you, Father.
Greatly to be praised.
Yes.
Father, you reign. Great are you, Lord.
You are great.
Greatly to be praised. Greatly to be praised.
Great are you,
Great
Lord.
are you, Lord.
You are great.
Greatly to be
You are
praised.
greatly to be praised.
Greatly to be praised.
Father, you reign.
Father, you reign.
Great are you, Lord.
Greatly to be praised. Greatly to be praised. Father, you reign.
Great are you, Lord. You are greatly to be praised. You are worthy to be praised. Father, you reign. You reign. You reign forever. You are greatly to be praised. You are greatly to be praised. Father, you reign.
Great are you, Lord. Greatly to be praised.
Greatly to be praised. Father, you reign.
Father, you reign. Great are you, Lord.
Great are you, Lord.
Greatly to be praised. Father, you reign.
Only you can do what no man can do. Only you can do what no man can do. Jehovah.
Only you can do what no man can do. Only you can do what no man can do. Jehovah.
I don't know what the Lord has done for you this year. On my behalf, in case you have forgotten what God has done for you this year, on my behalf, I want you to praise Him. He's reliable. He's dependable. He's my backbone. He is my resting place. Oh. He's my pillar. He's dependable. Only you can do it. What no man can do. Only you can do it. What no man can do. Jehovah.
Only you can do what no man can do. Only you
Give it to Jesus. Give it to Jesus. Hey, 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 hey. Come on. Woo. I will call upon the Lord.
Call upon the Lord.
Now so, now so, now so. Hallelujah. I will call upon the Lord.
Call upon the
Who
Lord.
is worthy to be praised?
Is worthy to be
Who
praised.
is worthy to be praised?
Is worthy to be praised.
Then shall I be saved from my enemies?
The Lord reigneth.
Hey,
Blessed be the Lord.
hallelujah.
Let the rock of my salvation be exalted.
Yes, he
The
reigns.
Lord reigneth.
He reigns.
Blessed be the Lord. Let the rock of my salvation be exalted.
He reigns.
Lord
Yes,
reigneth.
he reigns.
Blessed be the Lord. Let the rock of my salvation be exalted.
The Lord reigns.
The Lord reigneth. Blessed be the Lord. Let the rock of my salvation be exalted.
When Jesus says yes, nobody can say no.
When Jesus says yes, nobody can say no.
Over my life, the Lord has said yes. In every situation, He has said yes. Hallelujah. Hey. When Jesus says yes, nobody can say no.
When Jesus says yes, nobody can say no.
Everybody.
Up Jesus.
Hey.
Up Jesus.
Up of Jesus.
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 Up Jesus.
Hallelujah.
Up
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. We exalt you, Jesus. We great. You reign. We exalt you, Lord.
Hi, welcome to another exciting time in God's presence. This is Connect Service, our Wednesday service, where we get to talk about everything and anything God. And last week was awesome. I'm sure you guys enjoyed every bit of it. And you guys enjoyed it so much that you asked us to, to have more time on the show. And that's just what we're going to do today. So we're having more time, and we're just going to be discussing another exciting, yet, how do I put it now? Yet disturbing topic, and that affects you and that affects me as well. So without much further ado, let's get into the nitty-gritty of the service. I'm not here alone as usual. Last week I had two BEA beautiful ladies with me. Today, again, I still have those same BEA beautiful ladies. They are amazing, and they did justice to last week's topic, talking about domestic violence. Today, we are going to be talking about child abuse. So on my right, I have with me the lovely Lara Adekoya.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
All right, I have with me here Kemi Akiode. How are you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for having us today once again.
Awesome, awesome. As you can see, like I said, they are lovely and they are ready to dissect the topic child abuse. I'm your host, Mickey, as always. Let's just get into the nitty-gritty. I don't want to talk too much. They say I talk too much these days, but hey, it's my job. Anyway, all right. The issue of child abuse is something that have been discussed, same as domestic violence, in different forums, different avenues, different areas, TV, print, even in on the radio, we've heard people discuss child abuse. But I know you guys have something different to offer, to talk about, to just bring to the table today. So I'll start with you, Lara. I always like to start with a fresh perspective. So in your own view, I know a lot of people know what child abuse is, right? But in your own view, in your own perspective, what do you consider to be child abuse?
Okay, so child abuse, in very simple terms, is harm to a child,
Okay.
whether intentional or non-intentional. A part of it also includes
physical body. So, for instance, you have a little child, and then your child cannot talk to you freely. Your child says, "Mommy, I want to talk to you," and you're always telling the child, "I don't have your time. I am busy. Can you go and talk to your brother or someone else?" You're abusing the child psychologically. In your own opinion, you may feel, "Oh, but the child should understand that I'm busy." No. So it's important for us as adults, as parents, as caregivers, to take note of those other areas. It may look to us like it doesn't really matter. I'm doing my best. I'm doing all I think I should do. So even if I'm not giving this child the attention that this child requires, I don't think it's a big deal. It is really a big deal. So when you don't give your child the adequate attention that they require, you are abusing the child. Especially when the child regularly comes to you to say, "Mommy, I want to talk to you," and you're like, "I am busy. I'm busy today. I'm busy tomorrow." You are indirectly passing a message to that child. You're telling that child you are not important. Whatever you want to say to me is not important. And when it continues like that, the child grows up with that and feels, "Oh, I really am not important," because the most important person that the person I regard as most important in my life doesn't even want to hear me talk or doesn't even want to hear me out. So you have created something in that child, whether you know it or you don't know it, you are abusing that child. Such a child will most likely grow up with esteem issues. Because the child feels, "Well, nobody wants to hear me, so let me just keep to myself and my opinion doesn't matter anyway." So that's one of it that I would really like to talk about. Yeah.
Okay. Let's move forward to what we all know, what the layman out there knows as child abuse, the physical hitting, beating of a child. Now, Lara, in your case, thinking about it, what do you think can trigger, can make a parent raise his or her hand on a child? Because some will tell you, "It's my child." I've heard the parents tell the child this, "I brought you into this world and I can take you out." So that statement itself, there's a whole lot of things running through it. It's so wrong. So what do you think can make a parent raise his or her hand on their child?
Okay, so this question has a lot of answers to it, but I'll
yes.
try and summarize. First of all, ignorance. Second, that's the only way they know. That's this is the way I was raised. They beat me and nothing happened to me. And we tend to think nothing happened to us. But the truth is that a lot of us had to reshape ourselves after we grew up.
Okay.
You became an adult and you realize that, my self-esteem has been battered. Okay, so let me work on myself. But when it's now time to raise your children, you begin to think, nothing happened to me. What's the big deal? I will beat you, I will batter you, I will carry you to the hospital, and you'll be fine. I'm not that doesn't care about the children. You can't do half of that if you are in other countries. Then, okay, so I've mentioned ignorance. I've mentioned that's the only way you know. And then some people, it is pressure. Inability to handle pressure. And so because you are angry, okay, so I'll just quickly go. During the week, I had a parent call me. She was frustrated. She was frustrated because her child was just stressing her out. And her husband, because of the child's behavior, the husband was tending to beat the boy so much that even she started getting angry. And so that was going to even affect their marriage. But I had to let her understand that what is happening is your husband is coming home with so much pressure. We spoke about it during domestic violence. Living in Lagos, there is a lot of stress already. You are stressed up in traffic. You are stressed up at work. You are stressed up even walking on the road. So there's a lot of stress, and a lot of people do not know how to manage the stress. And so most often the child is also someone that bears the brunt of it. And then for some people, it is just power. The person you mentioned, power. I am your father. I can
Discipline
I
you
can
anywhere I
discipline
want.
you anywhere I want. If I like, I'll break your leg. Is it not my money I will spend? But you must understand that one thing I always tell parents is raising a child is stewardship. Is stewardship in the sense that at the end of the day, you really don't own that child. You are only given a few years to raise that child. So how you handle those few years that you have for that child matters a lot. Not just to you or the child, but even to the person that gave you the child. So if we understand that, the likelihood that you will beat your child anyhow and say, Shebi, I'm the one that gave birth to you. Am I not the one that gave birth? I can kill you. No, you can't. You do not have that. You're not giving that power. But for some people, it is just a show of power. It is the need to be able to control. But bottom line, I think it's a mix of all these factors, but majorly the fact that it is conditioning. We call it conditioning in psychology. So you have been conditioned by the way you are raised and by the way you have seen it around you, that the only way to train a child is to beat the child. And you know, there's a scripture in the Bible too that says, spare the rod. And
I was actually going to come to that.
Automatically in our heads, the rod becomes physical. No, the rod is not just physical.
Okay.
It's called the rod of discipline. The rod of discipline is not just corporal punishment. So there's a lot of, but bottom line, that's just the way some people know. So there's a lot of reorientating to do for a lot of parents. Your child is not your own. You cannot just treat your child anyhow.
Talking about that, I was actually going to ask about the Bible scripture that says, spare the rod and spoil the child. Kemi, she mentioned something right now, that there's a lot of reorientation that needs to go round, especially to our parents, right? How do you tell someone that is a strict parent that adheres strictly to the Bible and always quotes that scripture, spare the rod and spoil the child, when you tell the person that, look, you don't have to beat your child for you to correct that child? How do you now explain it to that kind of parent?
Rod. Yes, thank you. I'm trying to get that Bible verse. Proverbs 13:24. That's where it is. I remember maybe about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I had this conversation on a WhatsApp group. And I had to talk about discipline versus punishment. A lot of times, most parents punish their children as against disciplining them. So when the Bible says, spare the rod and spoil the child, one of the things I asked them on that group is, so if you would tell your child, I would not spare the rod because I don't want you to, because if to you, you think that rod is just to, if that rod to you means something to always eat your child physically at every opportunity that you fought me, because that rod too, we should use it to do the same to you. So really, that rod is not beating. It is not corporal punishment. So because a lot of us, like she said, it's the conditioning. We just believe that it is only Cain. It's just a mindset that children, the only thing they understand is Cain. No, it is not. So if for a parent, you are really, really, really sincere, you want to really do away with beating your child at every opportunity, then you need to deal with the mindset first. And that mindset of, well, my parents raised me that way and I did not die. My parents raised me that way and I turned out well. Well, things have changed. Times have changed. The things our children are exposed to now, we were not exposed to that thing. I tell people that half of the things some of our parents did to us, you would not try with the children that we have nowadays. You would not even want to try it. So we need to really make up our mind as a parent that and be open to learn and relearn. We need to be open to learning, honestly, because that is the only way we can actually get it right with our children. If you don't want to keep beating your children at every opportunity, then be open to learning. As a parent, the first place for you is to be willing to learn. Just be ready that, okay, put yourself down. Okay, all those things that I have learned, the way they have raised me, fine. I agree that they did their best. They did what they knew how to do. But now I want to do better. And the starting point is be ready to learn. So you let go of all those mindset of, it is only Cain that children understand. No. So when you are willing to learn, then you do research yourself. You can go online. There are lots of parents coach online these days. You can go to YouTube. You can buy books on parenting. Me, I have several books on parenting. When I finish reading, I will send to my husband, sweetheart, see, I saw this one, you too read. Because that is the only way we can learn. Because we have actually been conditioned to believe that it is only when you eat your child. I was telling a friend a few weeks ago that, I can't remember the last time I used cane on my boys, that even the fact that they are boys, I don't use cane on them to say every time. I used to beat them too, like, you guys will not kill me. But when I began to learn and I saw that, well, this one seems to be working better, and I am not under pressure. I don't have to shout all the times. I don't have to scream. The children will not see me and then pick and run away like, Abijawara is coming. You understand? So for us as parents, honestly, we just have to be open to learning. That, okay, you people said this thing is not the way. Then what is the other option that I can use? Because really, children, with them, they can turn you nuts sometimes. But you have to be far ahead of them. That's the power that we have. We have to, like, be 5 times ahead of them. Like, okay, I was expecting, I knew you were going to do this, but don't worry, I've handled it. So really, it's just about learning, and learning.
Okay, learning, unlearning, relearning, those things are essential if you want to be a very good parent, not just teaching your child all the time. And I keep picking cues from what you guys are saying. I'm actually having a good time because I'm a dad myself. I have a son, and he's going to be one. He's already one already. And I think to myself, the things he does now, sometimes I want to raise my hand, and I'm like, he doesn't even know what he's doing right now.
Exactly.
Right? So he doesn't even know what he's... So even if I beat him as a form of correction or as a correctional measure, how will he even learn that what he's doing is wrong or right?
I've seen parents beating their children because they are crying.
Wow. Wow.
And I'm asking myself, what do you want to achieve? You are frustrated because the child is crying. And you are beating the child. What do you expect the child will do? You will still cry.
Keep crying. That actually brings me to my next question. So how do you determine, how do you draw the line? What's the difference between punishment and discipline?
Okay, so let me just quickly read the scripture. I had to search it up. Proverbs 22 verse 15, and a lot of parents quote it. I heard it a lot. Let me say it in Yoruba. Aya ọmọdé ni wèrè dì sí.
That's very strong.
Bottom line, foolishness is bound in the heart of a child. It is the rod of correction that will drive it out. Now, I quickly checked it in TPT version, and it says, although rebellion is woven into a young man's heart, tough discipline can make him into a man. So to answer your question, punishments and discipline are totally different.
Okay.
Okay? So discipline is the process you used to get to a place.
Okay.
Punishment is one of the tools.
Of discipline.
Yes.
Okay.
So discipline is like the road. Punishment is one way that you can use to go on the road. So you want to go from here to Excellence Hotel. You can decide to walk. You can decide to take a bike. You can decide to take Marwa. You can decide to drive. You understand? You can decide to jog.
Okay.
So the process of raising is discipline. But one of the tools is punishment. So punishment is those things we used to do a lot as children. In fact, someone was saying something today that some children will not even know what koboko is. You understand? So punishment is those things that you consistently do, the beating, the physical harm, raise up your hands, and all of that. That is punishment. But punishment without explanation, you will not achieve what you want to achieve. So even though it's a tool, just use the tool properly, you will not achieve the results you want to achieve. Okay, so that's what punishment is. But your goal is discipline. However, you begin to punish and punish and punish, and before you know what's happening, you are moving to an extreme of abuse. If all you know to do to raise your child is to punish. Before the child does one thing, go and kneel down there. Before the child does the other thing, raise up your hand. Before the child does one thing, you are beating the child. That child is going to grow up
Condition to think that.
to be careful about how we handle our children.
Speaking about that, there's actually a case recently that I read online about the lady whose I think 8-year-old daughter. I'm not sure about the age, but she's quite a youngster. She was sexually molested, and the lady called the child a prostitute. And as we speak, social services, they've taken the child away from her. So that lays credence to what you're saying. Now, which brings me, because there are so many things to talk about when it comes to child abuse. There's a sexual aspect, there's a neglect, there's a physical abuse. So we're just going to take time to dissect each and every part of it. All right. A couple of weeks back, 4 or 5 weeks ago, he didn't appear for two papers, maths and English, if I'm not mistaken. But he got a distinction in music. And the father was angry because he's paying so much money in dollars, right? So my question is, in that situation where you're putting your all into raising your kids physically, financially, all right, and they don't meet up to expectation, your expectation, does it call for such physical abuse? Because when that video surfaced, a lot of people were for the dad hitting the child, and a lot of people were against. I'll start with you, Kemi. In that instance, what would you advise?
Honestly, I saw the video too, and we've had this conversation on one of my WhatsApp groups, that particular video.
Okay.
So what I said then was, honestly, the father was angry at that point. And so it's just normal as human to react that way, like, are you okay? I have spent so much on you. You did not even show, I mean, it's just normal. So we cannot blame the father for going that route. However, I'm sure that, like, well, maybe it's just my assumption. What I concluded was, I'm sure after that crazy moment that we all saw online, I'm sure they will probably have a sit down and then talk about it.
Conversation.
But truly, nobody wants to spend money and then you are not happy about what is happening. The tricky part to it is now that when we looked at the child results and we saw that this child seems to be doing well in music, and then a lot of people advocated that the father should have allowed the child go to a musical school. But the truth is, the basic of education still has to be it still has to be met. So we cannot say, okay, at least for us in Nigeria, we know that the basic requirements is that you finish your O levels, which is the WAEC. After that, then whatever that you want to pursue, then you can begin to pursue it. So it's just normal for any parents to react that way. That doesn't really mean, we cannot judge by that one instance to say that the father is abusing the child.
Okay.
And I'm sure that person we saw in that picture is not a child like maybe zero instance as an abuse, because we have no history that, okay, this is how the father always treats the child, or this is what the father is always doing every time to the child. So we can't say whether the father was right or the father was wrong. Anybody in that man's shoe that is not stealing money. However, that's why we said it's important for us to learn, relearn and unlearn. As we begin to learn, it's important for us, this father, maybe he has probably been able to manage his emotions. That outrage that we saw, it may not go that way. It's possible you could actually be angry and lash out at the child and do all sorts. And then maybe you just take a walk. And then when you feel you have calmed down, you may want to call the child and then find out, okay, what exactly is the problem? But truthfully, any parent can get to that edge of, child, what is wrong with you? I can't afford to spend this much on you and you are coming with this. As a matter of fact, when I see my children's result and I feel that they are not doing well in a particular area, the first thing I do is I reach out to their teachers. I want to know, do you think there is any problem that this child has in this area or not? Then when I get home, I now call the boy, bros, what happened? You know, I'm trying to build that culture now so that when it gets to that stage where we begin to deal with the big things, it's easy for us to talk about it. So it's a thing that we all have to be deliberate about it. It's not the joy of any parent to spend so much on a child and the child returns with a poor
Results.
as much as we know that it is not the results that makes the child, but it's still important for a child to at least make the parent proud.
Okay, I was going to ask you to respond to that, but I think she's pretty much covered all the basics. So let's move on to something else entirely. Neglect. We've seen parents say, I'm chasing this money, I'm chasing that money. They hire tutors to take care of to teach their child at home. The children are at the mercy of house helps. And we've seen situations where these people take advantage of the children. Neglect is a huge issue when it comes to child abuse. It's also a form of child abuse. So in that instance, what do you have to say? How can parents find a balance between neglecting their child and finding time for their child? How can they find a bridge in that instance?
Okay, so priorities.
Okay.
You have to first of all ask yourself what is important to you. I'm at the point in my life right now where if you come to me and say, as I'm getting married like this, we don't want to have children. Honestly, you have my support. Honestly. Because I would rather you don't have a child than have a child that you will not take care of. So, your priorities matter. Is it this money that is important to you? If it's that money, please chase it with all your heart. You are free. Is it this child? Raise the child with all your heart. But if both are important to you, then you must be able to strike a balance. And that balance starts with prioritizing. Why do you work? You know, a lot of parents
Confused.
not confused. They tell themselves, in a bid to convince themselves that this work I'm doing is because of the children. And a lot of times, I beg to differ.
Okay.
So you put your child in you want to put your child in a very, very good school. Okay? Most parents would define very, very good school
As expensive.
as expensive.
Okay.
But you do not have to have expensive. Expensive education is not the same thing
As good
as good education. Then you need to understand that education is beyond the classroom. What are you doing to teach your own child by yourself? So all those things matter. So if you are chasing that money, are you chasing it? You need to be able to settle it in your heart. Am I chasing it because of my ego? If it's because of my ego, so that I can tell people that I went to America yesterday and I'm going to Dubai tomorrow, fine. But if you are doing it because of your children, then your child must also be a priority. So your child must learn, you must learn to give attention to your child. Don't neglect your child. You can raise your child for you. School cannot raise your child for you. Your maids and the home lesson teachers cannot raise your child for you. There is a place that is your own place in your child. So you have to do everything to ensure. But if it's that money, quickly focus on the money.
Sort it out.
And sort it out. But priorities, your child must, and the painful part is children also want to know that they are important to you. So you have children who say, my mom doesn't care for me. But you look at the child, only you have driver. Only you, there is a car assigned to you. Only you, anything you want, they are giving it to you. But the child still is important to the child. It is your attention, it is you that is important to your child. So you need to
Now,
Yeah.
the fact that I'm giving my child a good life in this case means there's nothing to it. So, Kemi, this question is for you. What do children in this case is housed under age 0 to probably 16 or 15. What do children want from parents the most?
Okay, sorry, before I answer that, let me quickly add to what she just said about prioritizing. So it's important because of the peculiarity of the times that we live in, it's important for us to work to make money. But please, while we are at that, it's important to just always ensure that we create time for our children. Because Honestly, if we don't have money, we may not be able to get them some of the things that they need, which is not at home with my children.
No.
Yes, that's why I just thought to clarify it. What we are saying here is let there be a balance. No matter how busy you think you are, ensure you always create time for your child. Your child is very, very important. You cannot afford to leave your child totally at the mercy of other people. It is your child. That child is yours. It is your responsibility. So even if you work morning till night, ensure maybe weekends, you can choose to, please, you don't need to attend Owambe if you need to spend that weekend with your children. You want to know what has happened to your child. When school was on, there's no day I come back and I don't ask my children what happened in school today. I don't go out directly to say, so what happened? This. We just want to talk. I just want to know. Just tell me, what's the most interesting thing about school today? They will begin to tell you, this one match me when we were on assembly. Because you need to get information from them. But if you don't create that time, then when things that are serious, when it is happening to them, you would not know. And then we will now begin to blame the house help. We'll begin to blame the driver. No, it is because something is lacking. So that brings me to answer your question that what do children need? If there is anything children need, they need your time. They need your attention. They need you more than they need anything. They need you more than the America you want to take them to. They need you. They need you to listen to them. I said it earlier that if your child comes to you, Mommy, I want to tell you something. Oh, this child, can't you see that I'm busy? And then it becomes a cycle. Every time your child tells you, Mommy, I want to talk to you about something. Or your child asks you a question and you feel the question doesn't make sense, please answer. Because you are trying to form a relationship with them. It's better to start early. That's the trick. Just start early with those children. No matter how senseless you think what they are saying is, listen to them. When they ask you questions, please answer them. You tell them something. The reason is because when more sensitive issues are happening, you will be their first point of call. Another important thing is, please tell your children that they should feel free to tell you anything. Even if they have done something that is wrong, always remind them that you are their first point of contact. Even if you have done anything bad, please talk to me first. I promise I would not beat you. I would not shout at you, but we need to talk about it. I need to know what is happening to you. So for those who still have children who are not yet in their teenage years, please develop that relationship. Ensure there is a connection between you and your child. Ensure you want to know what makes them happy. You want to know the things that gives them joy. Because you can't imagine that it is your teacher, it is your child's teacher that will now be telling you that, oh, your child is this. Do you know your child has this tendency? And you're like, no. But when you spend time with that child, you would see all these things yourself. That's why we said the process of parenting, you learn, you unlearn, you relearn. And you need to interact with your children. Don't say, what will I be saying with a 3-year-old? Play with your 3-year-old. When you play with them, children learn from playing. There's a lot of things they learn from playing. You want to be deliberate about playing with them. Carry them. Just sit down and say, okay, so what is this game that you people are playing? Oh yeah, let's play it together. You are forming a connection. And from there, it is easy to find out when things are happening to them. But if you begin just children, what will I sit down and be saying with my 5-year-old? There is a lot that you are missing out on.
Okay. There's a lot that you're missing out on. Find that time for your kids. Children need time, your time. Create a relationship. Build a bond with your kids. It takes me to another angle of child abuse. I don't think this time that we have we'll be able to expatiate enough on the many angles that we have on child abuse. So we've talked about the physical aspect, we've talked about neglect, and we've talked about creating time for your kids. Let's talk about sexual abuse. Now, molestation, sexual molestation. Because from what you've said, Kemi, if I don't have a bond with my kids, if I don't have a relationship with them, when things go wrong, like you said, I would not be their first point of call. All right? So how do we protect our children from any form of sexual molestation? Now, remember, I keep hearing a mother around my area saying, don't call my How would you explain this further?
Okay, so I'll first of all start with the fact that a lot of sexual abuse that have been recorded is usually done by people that are close to the family, people that are close to the children, people that the child trusts. So what you want to establish first of all is trust between you and your child.
Okay.
Trust. And trust starts from, she mentioned something about your child should be able to run to you. And you promise your child, I won't beat you, I won't talk to you. Please, if you tell your child, tell me the truth, I won't beat you. And you beat, you have killed trust. Okay? So, if you know you are going to beat, don't promise that you will not beat, such that you don't kill trust. Because the important thing to a child molester is trust. And so, in order to be able to combat it, you must establish trust with your child. She has already mentioned one important thing, which is have a relationship. Develop trust. 2, start teaching them as early as possible.
Teaching them about sexual education or
Yes, teaching them sexual education. So you start with things like the parts of your body.
what? Okay.
The penis is called penis. It is not called pee-pee. Okay? The breast is breast. It is not called Bobby. You understand? You give them the right. I remember I was teaching my daughters. My daughters already know what their vagina is. And then someone's like, this small girl knows what vagina is. What she said, okay, doesn't she know what her leg is? She knows leg now. If I say touch your head, she touches her head. If I say touch your eyes, she touches her eyes. So why would I give a special name to that part of the body? It's important that they begin to, first of all, understand the names of every part of their body. And then you also have to teach them what is private and what is public.
Okay.
So you must also let them know that their private parts are private. It belongs to them. And they are not permitted to show it or share
Expose it.
with anybody. And that will start with you giving the example. So you are not just going to ask your daughter, come, I want to see your breast, raise up your dress. No. You are not just going to do that. You must have a reason. You understand? Maybe your child comes to you and says, this place is paining me. There must be a reason why your child should even show you their private parts. You understand? It starts with that. So a child that knows that, wait, even my mother will not tell me to remove my pants just so that she can stick her fingers. No. That means this thing is not right. So you need to constantly begin to teach. A 2-year-old is not too early to start learning
So
about
I was going to
it.
ask that, yeah.
Because child molesters, funnily, they are going younger and younger. The trends are, you're not even seeing 6 months being molested. You understand? Because what they want to achieve is the person that will not report them. So they calm down. So as early as possible, teach your children about child abuse. And again, be the person that they want to run to, no matter what's happening. Because the molester will also tell them, don't tell anybody. If you tell anybody, you will die. If you tell anybody, I will kill you. If you tell anybody, so will happen to you. And that they want to build fear. But once you are able to establish to your child that you can come to me anytime, that child will come, no matter how bad. And that's why what she said about neglect and psychological abuse. A child is consistently coming to you and saying, I want to tell you something. You this child, I'm busy. Mommy, I want to tell you something. Sometimes it might just be at the early stages where you can catch it. You understand? So it's important that you consistently pay attention. Then there's also the place of pay attention. Pay attention. Your child sees someone and freezes. Pay attention
Attention to little
to
details.
little cues that your child, because for some children, even if you have established a fearful child, even if you have established that you can tell me, because the child or somebody says, if you tell your mommy, I'll kill your mommy. Your child wants to protect you, so your child will not tell you. You understand? So you have to now be able to pay attention and see the things that are not normal with your child.
Non-verbal
To
cues
be
as
able
well.
to pick it and then call the child, and then like we said, if you promise your child that I will not beat you, don't beat you.
Okay. Wow. I'm just having, like I said, coming.
Yes, it's possible. Actually, a lot of our parents, they abused us without knowing, because they actually thought they were trying to raise us well. I know of a case of somebody who the only method that that father knows is just to either beat the child, punish the child. So when your child comes home with a result that you feel is not up to what you expect, then the father will ask the little girl, put stones, tiny, tiny stones, put them on the floor and kneel on it.
Wow.
Maybe from night till the following morning.
What?
Real life issue that I know. So, in the father's head, I'm training this girl. I cannot afford to allow this child go wayward or do anything. I cannot afford for this child to bring disgrace to me. But you know, while the father feels, oh, yes, I've raised a good girl, there's a lot of things that would have gone wrong with that child. The child will probably, that child has the tendency of being the one that everybody in school will bully. I'm sure you know that that kind of a child, if anything is happening to that child, maybe someone is trying to molest that child. I'm sure you know the father or the mother is not the first point of call, because there is already a fear like, oh, this small thing I did, see what I got. If I now go to tell them that this is happening to me, who will listen to me? Who would believe me? So there's a lot of things that parents do unintentionally. Their intention is not to hurt or to abuse a child, but indirectly, that is what they end up doing. And punishment isn't always the way to go. Sometimes punishment means you want to inflict pain on the person, because you think that, okay, when I inflict pain on him, then he will not do it again. You lie. A lot of times, that thing that you have said,
Don't do. They still go
that
ahead.
is exactly what the child wants to do. That, okay?
I would even learn to do it behind you.
Exactly. And would even learn to do it behind you. So unconscious, that is why the most important thing in parenting is please be open to learn. Because honestly, what works for child A may not work for child B. That's why for us as parents, it's also important to understand our child. It's important for you to understand each of your child. The fact that you have a child whom you can scold and will still be laughing at you. Feels, what is this woman saying? She's just there ranting. And you do the same with another child. That one may just go into his or her shell, will withdraw, and so you would lose that child. So there are things that we do unconsciously as parents. So when we do things to our children, we want to we want to take like a back seat and observe, okay, this thing I just did to this child, what is it? You want to try and measure, like, okay, this I just did to my child. How is this child reacting after that, after whatever that happened? So if you see that it's most times, a lot of these things affect it has psychological effects on children more than, because
Physical.
parents will claim, but I don't beat my child. But when you always lash out at your child, any little thing, you are yelling at your child. Most of it actually comes from the emotional baggage that parents have. And because we have not taken time to understand the developmental stages of these children, it also puts pressure on us. So if you understand, if you already know that a child that is 2 years old, that child is innocent. So whatever the child does, the child just sees it and maybe play or something. You won't overwork yourself. When a little girl of 2 or 3 years old accidentally spills water on the floor and you still beat the child and you ask the child, go and carry him up, come and clean it. I mean, so we need to also understand, be willing to learn, honestly. Because when you have taken time to understand, okay, a child at this stage doesn't even know his left from his right. So why do I need to shout, yell?
Okay.
But you know, we live in Lagos. There's stress in Lagos.
Everywhere.
And there's a lot of stress on people.
Now, for us to finish this conversation, for us to end it, there's so much to talk about. I still have so many questions to ask. You talked about developmental stages of a child. How do we know what to do with the child at what time, at what age? Do we have child abuse among siblings? How do we protect our children from external bodies in terms of talking about their teachers, because teachers can actually molest children. We've seen cases where a mother went to school to confront the teacher for flogging the child to the extent the child had marks on their body, but we can't finish the conversation in just 1 hour. I hope we have another time to talk about this. Not to worry, the conversation continues on our social media platforms. You can check us out there. I want to find out, before we finally end this session, are there institutions, are there organizations?
There is still the Ministry of Women Affairs. There is the Office of the Public Defender. There is the Domestic Violence Response Team.
Okay.
They also attend to child abuse issues. Why? Because child abuse is also a form of domestic abuse. So if you is a form of domestic violence. Sorry. So if you consistently abuse your child, you use iron on your child, you cut marks, you do those kind of things, all in the name of training. These things are wrong. So if you see anybody around you doing that, please report. You put a child in a cage with dogs because the child stole. You chain the child down. If you see anybody around you doing all these things, you need to report, because it is not normal. Don't look away and say, Shebi is not my child. Another person's child is still going to interact with your child. So even if it's for the sake of your own child, please raise your voice and report, and let's work together and fight this menace.
Awesome. We've had a wonderful time. I'm sure you have had a wonderful time, and I'm sure you're probably thinking we should extend the session, extend it to 5 hours, but all good things come to an end sometime. All right. It's been a wonderful time hanging out with you, Lara Adekoya and Kemi Akiode. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I'm hoping to have another session like this with you guys, talking about something different, something that affects every one of us. Okay, till we come your way again next time. My name is Mickey, and I'm saying God bless you. Bye-bye for now.
I will call upon the Lord.
Call upon the Lord.
Who is worthy to be praised?
Is worthy to be
Who
praised.
is worthy to be praised? Shall I be saved from my enemy?
Hi once again. I'm sure you've been blessed by the talk show and the topic we talked about, child abuse, and I'm sure you've learned something today. You've unlearned and you've relearned something today. Not to worry, next week promises to be another exciting time in God's presence, where we talk about a different topic that affects you and that affects me. Till we come your way again next week. My name is Mickey, and I'll say, God bless you.
Blessed be the Lord. Let the rock of my salvation be exalted.